Yes, so we got two more we're waiting for. Waiting for Kurt and John. Here comes John. Good morning, John.
Good morning. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Awesome.
How's the weather in Vancouver this morning, John?
Here on Vancouver Island, it is not horrible. It is overcast. Sun might come out today. Rain will probably come out today. It's maybe 10 degrees Celsius, and I don't know how to do the conversion for you guys.
That's all right. Okay, so we're waiting for Kurt. Well, while we're waiting, why don't we do this? Wendy, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you, and then we'll go to John next.
Sounds great. I'm in a market just south of Oklahoma City, so we're about 15 miles south of Oklahoma City in Norman. We're a college town. My husband and I have been with EXP since 2016, so this is our fourth go round with the ICON, and we're very pleased to be a part of that ICON program.
Great, fantastic. John?
Yeah, I'm as you mentioned, I'm actually not in Vancouver. I'm on Vancouver Island, which is a large 460 kilometer long island, on about a 75-minute boat ride, ferry ride from the city of Vancouver. I've been in the business myself for 13 years. I was lucky enough to launch my career in the crash of 2008, and now I run a real estate team here in a town called Nanaimo, British Columbia, which is a community of about 120,000 people, if you include the outlying areas. Average home price here sits around $550,000 Canadian, which is nice because across the pond, as we call it there, to Vancouver, the average house price sits closer to about 1.4 million. So we tend to be a affordable, lifestyle-oriented bedroom community of the big city.
Very nice. Wendy, what's your average price in your market?
I believe our market statistics right now are right around 182. Mine personally is about 200, but we're 20 years into the business, so we've got a lot of referral and return business and do a lot of contingencies where people are buying and selling back to back.
Cool.
Fantastic. We'll give Kurt here maybe a couple more minutes. What do you think?
Where are you, Kurt?
Trying to look around here. I don't see him.
Maybe he hasn't booted up the world in a while.
Okay, well, we'll get started, and then when he gets here, we'll jump in, we'll introduce him, and enroll him right into our conversation, okay?
Sounds like a plan.
So let's start with John. John, what do you contribute your ICON success to?
So I started with EXP just over a year ago. I think January 30th, 2019 was my start date. I was lucky enough to hit ICON by my eighth month with the company. I think, you and I talked about it briefly in our pre-meeting, is my approach to the business is I really focus on relationships and agency as opposed to sales. So, I call it playing the long game. I kind of, it's not really about how many houses I sell. It's about how many people I can help make good decisions. And sometimes the best decision is not to buy or not to sell. And we take that long game. So, never telling clients what they want to hear, or taking the path of least resistance to a trade, or just trying to objection handle my way to a transaction. I show up. I listen as much as I possibly can. and I try to apply my 13 years of experience to their problem, and never trying to push anyone into buying or selling. And I think that leads to an immense amount of referral business. I think when I can, my guidance can be the deciding factor that has someone not to buy a home or not to sell a home. I actually see that as a huge success, and I tend to get more business from those interactions than I do the ones where I persuade someone to trade when it may not be the best decision for them. So really playing the long game is my key to success. The guiding principle that launched me in this business was people overestimate what they can accomplish in 1 year and underestimate what they can accomplish in 10 years. And my goal was to be making good money by playing the long game by year 10. And I managed to do pretty well by about year 4. And that's really, at the end of the day, my so-called secret to success.
Very good. Wendy, what about you? What do you contribute your icon success to? And how long did it take you to reach that level of production?
Well, as far as our level of production, I would have been hitting that way before we joined EXP. But I think if I look back, starting out, I was started in this business with little tiny people, so I was officing from home. And my focus every morning was just to get up and help whoever needed to buy or sell that day. So by focusing on my daily activities, it kind of solves all your problems in the long run as far as production goes. And, if you are getting up and your goal is just to be a person helper, this is a very people-y business, and we take care of people's needs, like what John's saying, putting people ahead of money is the most important thing. And he's right. A lot of times people don't need to buy or sell. And sometimes they do it anyway, despite our, thoughts on that. But regardless is to get up and help some person every single day, and obviously that it does lead to lots and lots of business. I have one client that just bought their first house with me, and I've known them for like 17 years. But I met them at an open house, and they referred a ton of business in those years leading up to their actual purchase.
So you more building relationships, it sounds like.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I can attribute like almost 85% of our business to that.
Mm-hmm. Now, do either of you delegate, or do you handle your business yourself? John?
Sure. No, I have a team. It's been, my teams I've had a team of various different sizes, but right now, yeah, I've got myself, 2 licensed agents and 2 full-time administrators. I've had an administrator since I started in 2008. I think I hired my first administrator in around 2010. So yeah, I'm big on hiring an administrator. I think it's sort of the first thing that people should be considering if they're looking to scale, even before adding agents. I think administrators. So yeah, I certainly leverage the help of human capital on my team.
Mm-hmm. And what would your one priority every single day that you do, what would you say that would be? John, did we lose you?
Sorry, I turned my mic off there. Thank you.
That's okay.
So for me, yeah, the daily habit is really taking time to make sure that I'm planning my day and planning my week. I have sort of sacred time in the morning where I really focus on that, as well. Making sure that I'm dedicating some time to proactive prospecting, reaching out to my active clients, reaching out to our high value leads, making sure that I'm committing at least a minimum amount of time to that every day. One of the core values of our organization is this idea of Kaizen, constant incremental improvement. And so if we can't, measure exactly what our inputs are, then it's hard for us to apply that element of constant incremental, to it. So those 2 things, probably proactive planning and prospecting, are 2 of the big daily habits.
Mm-hmm. Wendy, are there things that you delegate? in your
So
business?
at this point, no. I have had an admin for about the last 10 and a half years up till about 6 months ago. So my husband is now joined us full time. And so he's learning a lot of that. My son is in the middle of getting his real estate license and will likely be licensed this month. So we'll have another third, and then my son will be a fourth generation realtor. So right now I'm more concerned about making sure everybody cross-trained on everything, so we actually do not have an admin, because I want everybody to be learning everything.
Great. So we did have a question from the audience about how you compensate your administrative help. So Wendy, apparently yours is family, so it's all in the family. John, what about you? How do you compensate your administrative help?
So we've played around with a lot of different ways of compensation. The one that I seem to like the best is, well, first of all, in our province, you definitely want to make sure that your administrative help is an employee, and certainly don't play around with the contractor stuff. That's something that our province does not take lightly. So they're employees, and we'll pay them a base salary, generally around that $20 an hour mark. And then once they've put in enough time and their value has been proven and their productivity is at a level that is consistent with, then we'll start to add a bonus on the trading volume, and we make that for the entire team. So they'll get a bonus on every trade. Someone's asking about whether they're transaction coordinator. That's predominantly their role as transaction coordinator, but then they also do marketing assistance and just general office administrative executive assistant type activities. Bonuses on a trade for us. So that's really for me. Ideally, I like to keep the salary static almost forever if I can. And then the only the increase in compensation that I'll play with is with the deal bonus. So I'll usually start out with, say, a $25 per deal bonus. Then as they've been with me for long enough, and depending on productivity and how much they're able to handle, maybe increase it to 50. The max that I've paid out for a bonus, and this is with someone that was with me for a long time, was peaking out at about $200 a trade, and that administrator was able to make a very, very comfortable six-figure living with our organization at the time. That was when I had substantially more agents than I do now. I've gone a different route. I'm not trying to build the super team anymore. I'm really trying to build I call it my boutique kind of SWAT team that's all has very highly defined roles that all support one another. And so that's, I think that answered the question without going on a tangent.
Yeah. Sounds good. So what would you say to someone in the audience that could be that if they want to be an icon, someone's in the audience, they want to be an icon, what would your most effective lead generation tool or process, or how does someone get to that level if they're not there yet, would you recommend? Wendy, start with you.
Well, to me, it does go all back to lead generation. So you'd have to break down like what you are doing every day that's leading you to more business or leading you away from business, and be really focused on those activities. And it could be social media stuff that you're doing, but you have to track it over time and see how much is leading. To me, it's always the belly to belly interactions, which are the highest value. So appointments.
So time blocking, do you do a lot of time blocking and a daily schedule?
I live by my calendar, live and die by my calendar. If it's not on my calendar, it doesn't exist in my world. Yeah. Not that doesn't have to get shifted around from time to time, because it does, but I live and die by the calendar.
Great. Hey, I see Kurt's here, so we're going to step in and welcome Kurt. Hey, Kurt, how's it going?
Good. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Awesome.
Yeah. So why don't you introduce yourself, and then we'll throw some questions at you.
Okay. I'm Kurt Wanabo with EXP. I'm in San Diego, California. Been with EXP for a year and a half, coming on 2 years now. I used to have my own brokerage. However, my own brokerage was just my team. It always has been. So now it's no longer a broker. With EXP, have my team of about 12 agents. And we do a lot of, our price points kind of focuses on the $1 million to $2 million price range. And we average maybe, 70, 75 million a year.
How was it transitioning a team to EXP or your brokerage, I should say?
Well, yeah, because I have, my team is very structured, it's very organized. And so it wasn't too difficult because, it wasn't much different for them. And as opposed to coming to me with all of the problems, I can now direct them to the broker when there's difficult problems. But we have our own office and everything like that. So the transition was very smooth and they were very excited about, just some of the perks and benefits that EXP had had.
Awesome. That's fantastic. So John, let's go to you, back to you. What is your most effective lead generation tool or process, and how would you, if someone was coming to you that is only selling, not quite the icon level yet, what would you recommend for them get there?
Okay. Well, so lead generation's been a real cornerstone of my career. Little background on me is I moved to Nanaimo from a community that's about 2 hours away. I'd never really been here before. I didn't really know the community. I didn't know anyone in the community. I was lucky enough that I had a background in online marketing, and this was now 2007, 2008. I'm hearing a lot of feedback too, like someone's by the ocean. So I started online lead generation when it was just kind of getting going, and was lucky enough to secure a lot of good online assets that generate leads for me. That said, in today's climate, I think it's a little bit harder. It's a much more competitive, and I feel like online leads are sort of your lowest value, highest cost leads. And so I don't think in 2020, trying to launch your career off of online lead generation, I'm not sure that that's the best way to go. I even believe nowadays that I think agents and people are going to think maybe I'm crazy to say this, but I actually don't even believe you need a website anymore. I think websites are far less valuable than they were. If you have a highly productive website that gets immense amount of traffic, obviously that's a major business asset. But for a new person starting out, I think I would use existing platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, and I would simply build off of those platforms for online leads. And the way to do it now, in my opinion, is simply by trying to figure out ways to provide immense value to your highly defined target market as often as possible. If a book I'll recommend to everyone that's just maybe thinking about how they're going to define themselves in the marketing space is Seth Godin's latest book, This Is Marketing. In that book, he talks about this idea of identifying the smallest viable market, and I just love what he talks about this smallest viable market. And so that's really our approach to business. Is we've defined 4 archetypes of ideal clients, and we simply create content that would be valuable to those archetypes, build reciprocity by I do a ton of Facebook live videos, a ton of community interviews with leaders in my community, businesses in my community. I'll profile parks and beaches, and which we have a large inventory of here. It's a very beautiful place where we live, and just constantly just coming from a place of providing value. And then I wait for people to reach out to me, and then I serve them with every ounce of energy from everyone on our team, trying to create a 5-star, 10 out of 10 experience every time. And that's again, just a sort of extenuation of our long game approach.
Mm-hmm. So do you do any farming or direct mailing?
So we have played around with that. We're just launching a direct mail now. But it's really just one component of an overall strategy. So we have essentially a rack card that lands in mailboxes in very specific communities and the communities I pick are the ones that I love, the ones that I think are the best places to live in our city. And everyone's got a different opinion. Our city is very diverse, and I put a rack card every 6 weeks to these very specific neighborhoods. But then further that, ahead of the rack card landing and after the rack card landing, I'm running video content of me literally standing in their community, teaching them either about recent sales in their community, market stats in their community, or just things I love about their community. And we're geo-targeting them through Facebook and Google AdWords, so that they already kind of have a familiarity with me when the rack card lands in their mailbox. And then the simple call to action on the rack card is not, there's nothing on the rack card about me being number one or me selling a home every 42.5 seconds. It's none of the ego-based branding. It's all about them. It's all about our approach, our client-focused approach. And then we invite them to download a market report of real estate stats in their neighborhood. And I mentioned the neighborhood, of course. So, go to hammondbay.ca to download the latest Hammond Bay real estate report. So it's micro targeted, and then we complement that with some video content, and we advertise that content digitally just in their neighborhood.
Mm-hmm. So Wendy, what about you? As far as I know you talked about your lead generation, but what would you say, what percentage of your budget do you think you spend on your lead generation?
Right now, it's sitting I think, at 21%.
Mm-hmm. And has that been effective for you?
Yeah, and I'm not doing as much mail out stuff. My mail out stuff usually is specifically to our database of folks. So, anything that I'm doing, pop buys and gifts and client appreciation type of things, if I can get back in front of our sphere of people, especially the ones that are continuing to refer business to me, that's the biggest thing. Like, I have a client that's coming by here within the next hour to pick up a gift that I had somebody hand make for her because she got a new job last week. And this person just refers business to me probably at least twice a month.
So going back to your relationship business platform.
Yeah. Everything I do goes hand in hand with that.
Mm-hmm. So Kurt, did we ask you what your effective lead generation tools are? I can't remember.
No, I do a lot of marketing.
Yeah, tell us about that.
I mean, because I've been doing this now for 16 years, I have a team, I'm pretty established. I have a lot of different marketing channels that I utilize, including mailers, online leads, working with our referrals, past clients, asking for referrals. So it's kind of extensive, but I will say this, one of the things that when I started my career, one of the most important things to me before I even started marketing was really to make sure and understand that I had a strong CRM, because you can do lots of marketing and you can generate leads, friends and family, etc. But if you don't have systems and models to be able to follow up with them, it can be very difficult. I had heard, I think it was John mentioning that he markets to very specific people. Well, I'd assume that those specific people may be people in his database. So that's one thing that I kind of started with, was a strong CRM, and then I branched out with different marketing channels one at a time, testing them, seeing which ones worked, and then as they worked, I would add a new one and add a new one. So I know a lot of times when people start their career, you can go into different environments or coaching programs and they'll talk about these 10 different ways of marketing, and they try to do them all at the same time. But I was always very focused on doing one at a time.
And what's a portion of your budget that is for lead
I've always
generation?
had a pretty strong rule that I like to spend 30% of my income on marketing.
Mm-hmm. Has that been
now
effective
marketing is
for you
defined by a lot of things. I mean, it includes marketing for a listing that I have. It includes, CRM. I do consider part of my marketing budget. So, but all in 30%.
Okay. And how do all of you track your business? Who wants to start with that one? John.
Well, I have CRM tools,
Kurt,
and an accountant.
say it one more time. I missed that.
I utilize my CRM. I mean, the one I particularly use has some of that involved, and then I also have an accountant where I'm reviewing P&L every month.
Every month. That's awesome. Wendy, how about you? How do you track your business?
Yeah, for sure. I think after you get to a certain level of, and that professional accountant is important part of your business. And like John was talking about earlier about paying salary, we've done that with even our own selves for a lot of years. And I think that you kind of have to go back to professional help, because I was encouraged to incorporate our business a long time ago. And I didn't do it one year, and I think it cost me about $15,000 by not incorporating and paying everybody as an employee. But yeah, I mean, you have to track your numbers. Personally, I'm doing it on my own spreadsheet, but I pull my numbers every month out of our MLS and watching what's going on in SkySlope and making sure that things are closing, just to kind of keep track. I mean, set goals, and you have to be accountable to your own goals, or you're gonna miss it some months and not hit it other months, and be playing catch up. And I don't think you necessarily want to play catch up when you're running a business.
Yes, exactly. So what are you doing anything differently this year that you did not do last year to improve your numbers?
Well, I mean, I set higher goals each year, but because of the reconfiguration of my team and adding a third realtor, it's going to be interesting for me, because I think this is going to happen a third of the way into the year anyway. And trying to teach my son, who's a brand new realtor, how to start setting his own goals and, keeping him accountable to that, but yet integrating him in a way that's not overwhelming, because we all know that we cannot do every single aspect of this business ourselves. So I'm finding myself running a little ragged at this time. So I'm sure I'm going to have to give up some more of it at some point. I just want it to come and have the right person for the right fit, for our team.
So you're adding, but your answer to that in a short is because you're adding people to it. So that's what you're doing different. You added another person this year.
Yeah, and I mean, we had a licensed assistant before, but her primary function was as admin and not as necessarily as a realtor. So I just don't think, knowing what my son's personality profile is, I have to plug him into the real estate side of things rather than the paperwork side of things. I know where he'll thrive and where he won't, and I think that that's really important when you're adding people to your group, or even adding admin, that the personality profile of that person, so where they'll succeed.
Kurt, are you doing anything different this year than you did last year to improve your numbers?
Yeah, two things. One more at a higher level. I have a buyer team of a handful of 5 agents, and we've really been working this year on training them to keep their eyes and opens in regards to when they run across buyers, understand that those buyers are also listing opportunities, and our listing team is working very closely with our buying team this year. We even run across buyers in our database, because we get a lot of leads, where they don't end up buying with us, but we will follow along with them and track with them and find out when they do buy, even if it's with another agent, and then we keep them in our CRM and then treat them like a seller lead for in the future. Because I find so many times that, when somebody works with a buyer's agent, a few years down the road, they forget who the agent was that even helped them and enlist with someone completely different. So we're treating that different. And then the other thing is, I do a lot of mailings to my farm, to a specific area that I work. And I'm really transitioning the mailings that I do this year. Instead of just a postcard, instead of just something very simple, we're trying to create collateral and material where people will actually save it for a month or two, as opposed to just looking at it really quick and then throwing it away a few moments later. And that just includes a lot of data and charts and information about what's going on in the market, and informative articles and things of that nature. And we've been finding that, sometimes when we go into a house, we'll see these mailers sitting on their coffee table or in their house because they've kept them and wanted to read them. And I think it's just a more effective way of marketing mailing marketing that we've implemented this year.
Is your mailing piece, so it's not a postcard, is it more than one page? Is it something like a magazine?
Now it's essentially an entire booklet.
Awesome.
It's an entire booklet that's about 18 pages.
That's fantastic. John, what about you? Doing anything differently this year than you did last year?
Yeah, I've kind of reshaped a lot of something interesting happened in our market in mid 2018. We're no longer self-regulated here in British Columbia. The government took over our industry because there was a lot of shady shadow flipping with foreign buyers and a lot of money laundering going on, Chinese money laundering going on in our market. So the government of British Columbia took over real estate, and they quickly banned limited dual agency. So we can no longer work both sides of a trade, and they extend that to all team members. So everyone that's on your team is an extension of you. So if I have 14 agents on my team, every one of their clients are considered my clients and vice versa. So it kind of took the fun out of building a large scalable team. And so we're going in a very different direction. And the good thing is this change is as dramatic as it was to my long-term business plan. It forced me to kind of do a reinvention, and it was good timing for me because I was in need of that. So the goal for us really is much less now about growing our top line revenue and growing the number of agents, or even growing the number of homes we sell. What we're trying to do is focus on, obviously, profitability is obviously really important, but also we're trying to really attract my goal is to basically do about 100 trades a year with my perfect clients. So rather than trying to grow the size of our business, we're trying to grow the quality of our business. So for me right now, it's I want to be working with like those clients that are your perfect clients when you enjoy working with them and everyone's happy at the end of the trade and it doesn't feel like work.
Yes.
I want to try to make my practice predominantly that. And then further to that, I try to live a very modest lifestyle. I live very comfortably here on the island, but I don't drive, a $100,000 vehicle or live in a mansion. I try to keep it very modest because by July of this year, my intention is to work 4 days a week. So I'm looking to work Monday to Thursday, obviously have my team available for all 7 days a week. And then I'm looking to, like this month, we took my family from December 15th to January 15th. We went and traveled around Thailand. I didn't work for 4 weeks the whole time. I want to extend that to 6 weeks this year. So just trying to kind of go in a really different direction and build a highly profitable real estate business that works around my chosen lifestyle. I spent over 10 years stupidly working, 7 days a week and not taking any dedicated time off. I think that's a huge mistake that I see. It's the number one thing I see agents doing as a mistake is working too much and not giving themselves dedicated time to shut off. And I'll say this, if you work 7 days a week and you don't have dedicated time off, all you're doing is giving yourself a blank check to procrastinate, and that's all it ever becomes. And you can argue with me otherwise, but I'm not hearing it. If you work 7 days a week with no time off, you're procrastinating way too much. So that's our goal, is to really increase the quality of the clients that we're working with.
Mm-hmm. Kurt, what do you do to take time off? What do you take a day off? Do you give yourself a little vacation?
I couldn't agree with John more. Since very early in my career, I have had mentors, coaches, etc. And so I do live by a particular calendar. Nothing happens unless it's in there. And I always have had a dedicated day off where I will not take appointments. I don't take calls. And one of the keys to establishing that is also letting your clients know that that's in essence how you work, that you do need to take a day off and set that expectation right from the get-go. I would tell my clients, look, I'm a huge football fan, so I always take Sundays off, or that's the time I go golf, or that's the time I spend with my family. And when you set that expectation, they understand. I do the same thing with my team members. I again agree with John that I make sure that they set a particular day off. Now with buyer agents, sometimes they do have to work on weekends. So they set sometimes like Fridays, and my office is very quiet because a lot of my buyer agents will take that day off because they're doing open houses on the weekend, etc. I also set parameters around the hours I even work during a day. I tell my clients, look, after 6 o'clock, if you do email me or call me, leave me a message and I'll get back to you first thing in the morning. And then my family understands on the flip side of that, my schedule. So they can be very supportive of me when I'm working, and then they know when I'm not working or when I'm on or when I'm off. So, that's just kind of how I structured things since the very beginning of my career.
Hmm. Wendy, what about you? Are you one of those 7-day-a-weekers, or have you learned to take time off yourself?
Honestly, I think I'm more of a 6-day weeker. I think there's always one day during the week that I have to take off, but there'll be other times during the week that I do set aside time for myself. And of course, I think you start out the year with your calendar in front of you, and you have some vacation times blocked off as well.
Hmm.
But if you don't take care of yourself and allow yourself to have that downtime, then I think you would find yourself really burnt out pretty quick in this business.
Yes, I've been there myself, 23 years in the business, have gotten burned out, and I think it's very important what John and Kurt was saying. Also, anyone out there listening, very, very important to take time for yourself. Invest back in yourself, right?
I think one of the signals too, we call it managing our personal operating system here, and I think one of the signal for me that where I ultimately had to make a big change was when I started resenting my clients. You know, when I started to like, oh, come on, who's calling me at this hour? And oh, are you kidding me? You're gonna, you want to go out and look at homes at 7 o'clock tonight. And I was feeling like I was giving way more than I was getting. And it was a coach I had that basically gave me the advice and say, look, John, like it's not up to your clients to manage, what you're willing to contribute to the business. That's up to you. And that was kind of an aha for me. And I was like, man, he's right. And when I started to, like Kurt said, take control, give a dedicated day off, manage my clients' expectations right from the get-go, they were cool with it. They were like, yeah, you totally should take Sunday and spend it with your kids. That sounds like life got so much better, so quick, so much quicker when I did that. But that was my sign, was when I was just starting to uh, put a lot of negativity towards my what my clients were asking of me.
Hmm. So you mentioned coaching. Are you still coaching?
Yeah,
Have
I've
a
had
coach, I
I've
guess.
had three coaches. I worked with my first coach was with the Dirk Zeller Champion Real Estate Agent Organization. I had a coach named Al Mayer out of that organization. He was awesome. Really helped me just get organized and elevate the real estate business side of it. Then I was with Tom Ferry for a year and a half. I didn't really, nothing. I'm sure they're great. I didn't get much out of my experience with the Tom Ferry. It felt like a very canned coaching program, and it wasn't fitting where my business model was. And now I was lucky enough to find a non-real estate business coach here that happens to live on Vancouver Island, and I've really, really found great value in that. I tend to, I call myself a business, not I call myself a business person with a real estate license as opposed to a realtor, and um, and with that, by working with a non-real estate coach, it's really allowed me to think much more out of the box and really handcraft business model that's well suited to my highest and best use and my goal for my 90 years on this earth.
Awesome. Kurt, what about you? Do you believe in coaching? Do you have a coach?
I do believe in coaching and or mentors. I've had them since the beginning of my career, literally day one. There's a lot of different ones out there. I've known Tom Ferry personally for years and been coached by him, but I would tell people starting out, some of the best coaching I've ever gotten was from, per se, peers or mentors. I would go out and find some of the most successful agents in my community or area. I'd befriend them, and then I'd get to the point where I could ask them questions. And when you go through that process, it always has to be a two-way street. So anytime I discovered something or I found something new that worked for me, I'd share it with them. I'd call them up or ask them to go to lunch. And so I have just, I've learned a lot from just other successful agents. And EXP has actually helped in that regards when you're in downlines and things of that nature, and they're part of all of that. But yeah, I have always, and still to this day, real estate is always changing. It's always evolving. I am connected with all of the other top agents, have great relationships with them, and I'm always just keeping my ear to the ground with different coaching programs out there as well.
Nice.
Yeah, and you touched on something. I think that's important. That I feel that we have a lot of collaboration with our brokerage, where you can get coaching in our workplace, in our world, and it's for free. People sharing. So yeah, I think that's awesome. So if Wendy, if your business is falling behind, what do you usually do? What would be your booster to get you back on track?
More appointments. And, that could be with referral partners. It could be for asking for the business from other affiliates that we do business with all the time. But we should be doing that all the time anyway. So to me, there's not real excuses. I know that sometimes the business kind of comes in ebbs and flows with whatever's going on around. If the phone calls aren't as high as they should during the holidays or something like that, you get on the phone, you go see people. But yeah, I mean, you can always, the cool thing about this business is there is as much business out there as you want to go get. And I don't think that a lot of people realize how much power that they have to go out and create any kind of business that they actually want. But you have to put the effort in, and you have to go make appointments with people. It was kind of funny the other day. I was tagged in a post by one of my past clients who I've worked with her family and all of her friend group. But she tagged me in a post, and I think there were probably 7 or 10 other realtors that got tagged in this post. Well, I immediately went and asked this person to call me so we could make an appointment. And again, you get that person on the phone. They're a first-time home buyer. They want a ton of information. And I basically told them, I need to see you. I need to have a face-to-face appointment with you so we can go through the whole process. And if you'll just spend an hour with me, I can kind of get you on the path. Well, it turns out after that appointment, and they were very thankful to have all that information, they're getting pre-qualified right now. It's not somebody that's going to buy in the next 60 days, but it'll be a client that'll close this summer. But I was the only realtor that they saw face to face. Therefore, they signed that buyer brokerage agreement with me, right?
That's great. So get yourself out there is what you're saying. You got to talk to people face to face.
Well, and ask for the appointment. I think it's really easy when we're running around and super busy with other clients to forget that, we need to be filling our pipeline later, and that, these are really viable people that are going to sign up with someone. And if you're not the person that gets in front of them, I'm not sure if you really get that person as a client.
Mm-hmm. John, what about you? If your business is, if you see your business slipping and your numbers aren't where they are, where do you go for a booster? Is your mic off, John?
Oh, sorry. Directed at me. Sorry. Where do I go for, like, you talking just
Yeah,
how
like
do I?
if you see your numbers slipping or your business
Yep.
is falling behind, you got a lag.
Yep.
What do you do?
Yeah. Okay. So I think I've taken a little longer to learn the lessons that Kurt's sharing with you guys about just how important. I got so good and so excited, and online lead generation is a real fun challenge for me. It's something I've been doing for a long time, and it pulls me in. I love it, and I like creating content. I like trying to figure out how to generate online leads. But at the end of the day, for years, I neglected my past clients, and as I'm in my 13th year of business now, and when I do the rear view mirror analysis of where all our business came from, it's just become increasingly clear that it's not coming from online leads. I mean, certainly we're getting some of that. It makes up about 30% of our business, but 70% of it's coming from past clients and referrals. And so anytime now, and I only started doing this within the last couple of years, when business slows, I just print off. I'm tech, but I'm also analog in some respects. I'll print off literally lists of all of our clients with the house that they bought or the house that they sold, and I'll just start calling them and just checking in. Well, usually, like right now, what we do, we do what we call a spring opener event. So we just book at a cool, ocean view, usually restaurant or coffee lounge in our community. We just book a social. It's literally just a social. We don't make it too difficult for us to promote, and I just start calling them all to say, hey, just wanted to check in and let you know that you're invited to our upcoming social. And how are things going, and just try to, gently persuade the conversation into the real estate topic, but more importantly, just let them know that they're important to me and that they're invited out to our social. I like to call them with something of value, not just, hey, it's John, I'm here, I've got commission breath, and how can you help me? It's much more about, hey, I've got an event I want to invite you for. Hey, do you want me to send you a quick desktop evaluation of where your home's at? We also promote, and this is an initiative we started this or at the end of last year, and we're going to be doing a ton of them this year. Again, all about building reciprocity and giving back. Is we're actually hosting like litter cleanups. So we'll pick a park in our community. We'll pick a beach in our community. We live in a oceanside community like Kurt, although not quite as warm as San Diego, but maybe as beautiful. And we invite everyone out just to come help us clean up a beach or clean up a park. Costs us next to nothing. We run Facebook campaigns on it. It gives me a chance to call them or email them. We put it in our monthly market newsletter, and we just hang out, eat some donuts, crush some coffee, and clean up a beach or a park in our neighborhood. It's a great way to reconnect, and it's incredible how much business comes out of just getting everyone together in a room to chat on a social level. And then we'll usually hire just to finish that, we'll hire a video crew, photographer team to come and document the whole thing, create a little 90-second shareable memory of the event that we'll again leverage in our Facebook campaigns, both after the event and also to promote the next event.
That's awesome. That's a great idea. Love it. Absolutely love it.
So easy to execute on.
So Kurt, what about you? What do you do to give back to either agents or to the community? What is your thing that you like?
To the community, so my farm is a very, I guess the whole market is focused on the schools. Everyone wants to live in this area because of the schools. And the prices are really, the engine of real estate is driven by the schools there and the demand for them. So we try to integrate very heavily in regards to doing things for them and participating in some of the school events, sponsoring them. A lot of them have carnivals, and so we'll have booths and where we go and do things for them. We have in the past had little park events like movie in the park and things of that nature. So we just like to be involved. We try to focus very much so on the schools because the parents are there, people who are buying and selling are there. And that's kind of been our centric thing as far as the community is concerned.
That's awesome. Wendy, is there anything that you do as far as giving back to the community that you enjoyed?
We have a lot of involvement with our church group. I also do some stuff with the athletes at our university here. As far as we have several activities with them surrounding jobs and, what's coming up and exploring their opportunities within the community. So there are quite a few of us within the community of business owners that are involved with that group at the university. My husband just does a ton of stuff up at our church, and I have sit on some other boards with them as well, but those are our primary focuses. We've done a lot of training in the past with agents. I have just spent some time up with another board up in Kansas doing some training, and I've been an Inman ambassador, I think probably 5 or 6 different times. So we like to get out and do stuff nationally. It allows you to meet people from other areas and create those kind of referral type of relationships as well.
Awesome. So John, I'm curious, was real estate your first career?
No, real estate was not. No, I come from a long line of entrepreneurs. I always say no one in my family's ever had a job. And So no, I originally I got a business degree and I didn't know what to do with it, so I went and got a diploma in sports science. I ran I was heavily involved in mixed martial arts, MMA. So I ran an MMA gym. And a strength and conditioning practice dealing with combative athletes. This was way before the UFC was as cool as it is now. I ran a bunch of MMA shows, and but the sport wasn't really what it is now. So one of my shows made money. So I did a King of the Cage event here on Vancouver Island. I did 4 shows. One made money, and I took that money and built my first website in real estate, and launched my career from there. So no, it was definitely a meandering road to get me to real estate. I also did a post grad in real estate valuation. So I kind of had this marketing degree. At one point I thought I might be an appraiser until I figured out that job sucks. And I thought marketing degree, appraiser. I reluctantly decided that would probably make me a pretty good realtor. And so I kind of reluctantly got into real estate trading, and turns out that I was good at it and I really like it. So that was how I ended up as a realtor. And where I live here on Vancouver Island, there's not a lot of high-paying jobs. It started out as a forestry and mining kind of community. Now it's kind of evolved into a lifestyle community, but it's not a community where there's a lot of 100K plus ways to make money. You really have to build your own income path here. And if you can crack the income code here, it's one of the best places in the world to live, in my opinion, right up there with San Diego.
Great. So Kurt, where did you start out your real estate career, full-time or part-time?
I started immediately full-time. It was not my first career choice right after high school. I went to the fire academy, graduated from that, worked for
Nice.
fire departments, became a paramedic, and then I decided I was very interested in the med field, so I went to a school here in UCSD and was pre-med. When I got done, I said, I don't want to go to med school. What shall I do? At that point in my career, my dad actually made me buy my first house at the age of 18, and I parlayed that into other properties, and I owned a bunch of rental properties. So I immediately got my broker's license pretty quick, and then I went to go work for a team that was very successful and very productive, because even though I was a broker, I wanted to get some real world experience. And so when I joined that team, after 2 years, I had done like 120 transactions and felt very comfortable with it, and then went on my own.
That's amazing. Great. So, Wendy, let me ask you this. What issues in today's day and age, and maybe even you could speak from experience, do you think limits one's success when getting into the business, when becoming a realtor?
In all honesty, I think it's people getting comfortable with what they're doing. So basically it's inside all of us. So to me, because I'm like a hardcore like numbers person, I feel like if you kind of start with understanding the business from the paperwork side of things and knowing your numbers and your market absorption rates, what's going on with certain pockets of neighborhoods, if you're out doing the business, you get a pretty good understanding of that, and that can boost your confidence enough to make you feel like you can put yourself out there as the expert in certain areas.
John, what about you? What do you think limits, either in the past, what has limited your success, if there ever was something, or what would limit one's, like another realtor trying to get into the business, what would limit their success?
I think, the top thing for me, I think I already touched on there, which is just a failure to manage your personal operating system. If you're not looking after your physical health and and what kind of food you're putting into your body and what you're occupying your thoughts and mind with on a regular basis, I think, a lot of people just don't even give themselves a fighting chance in that regard. So I think success really starts by recognizing that the most valuable tool you're ever going to own, the biggest, is your brain and your body. And you need to lead with protecting those assets, and that's why I invest in coaching. That's why I invest in exercise and trainers and all that, is because that's the hack. That's the biggest tool to grow off of.
This conversation that we
Mhm.
have.
I think we have someone, Kevin Call, your mic is open, please. Thank you very much. Kurt, anything you want to expand on that? What would limit a success of a realtor?
Like a new one or just anyone?
Well, I mean, is there anything in your past that limited your success at any time that you had an aha moment, like, okay, this is limiting my success and I need to change it?
Oh God, there's so much. And not so much always for me, but because I've always been a team leader and immersed in teams, I've seen so many different agents come into this career. First, just, not knowing exactly what they want to do. There's a lot to being a real estate agent. I mean, we've covered some of it here today. Marketing, looking at your budget and your P&L and running a business, converting clients, generating leads, all of those things. That's a lot. And so if you're out there by yourself doing your own thing, you kind of have to become a little bit of an expert in all of those things. And if you really have to kind of understand what your limitations or capabilities are, and whatever your limitations are, try to learn and overcome them. I've run across agents who, or other agents don't even know what they want to do in the business, working with buyers, working with sellers, working with, in an area, working at a certain price point. So I feel like just really understanding what it is you want to do in this career, and being hyper focused on that, as opposed to trying to do everything and service every client, has always served me well. Focusing on a specialty, a niche. Usually when you become the best at one particular thing, I find you will make a lot more money than just being mediocre in a lot of different things.
That's great advice.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is absolutely right on spot. So we have about 4 minutes left here. Let's do one last question, and then we can open it up for Q&A if anyone wants to say anything. So I'll throw this question out here. We'll see who wants to challenge it. Describe an epic failure that changed the way you set your business strategy. John, come on. I know you got an answer for me.
An epic failure. Well, there's been a lot. I touched on the looking after myself already. I think you need to be very, very cautious about. There's a real trend in the industry right now for partnerships, and I think you need to be very, very, very careful with partnerships. They always seem like a good idea at the time, but they don't always. The advice, I had a partnership, and it was okay for a little while, and it ended very badly. And the advice I got leading into the partnership, as people with more experience than me were trying to talk me out of it, was basically saying, the partnerships get difficult. Not when you're both in the grind, things are easy, but it's when you actually hit the success where things get difficult. And that's exactly what happened in my scenario. So I would caution anyone that's thinking about partnering up with another agent in their office, to be, I would, my right off my advice would be, don't do it. And then if you still want to do it, then sit down with whoever you're going to partner with and write the divorce papers together. So when we decide to end this partnership, here's how it's going to go. And if you can get through that and still be wanting to do it, then maybe you have a chance. But I would be very, very reluctant. I would be very, very cautious to take on partnerships in this business. I see them, you probably do as well in your marketplaces. They come together and they go apart, and it can be good. It can be good. There was some good that came out of my partnership. But I think if I was to go back in time, I would avoid it altogether.
Good stuff. That's awesome. So we had a question in the chat about agent attraction. Does anyone do agent attraction? And if so, how much time do you spend on it? Wendy, want to start with you?
Actually, I just took one of Jackie Bowman's classes on that. So I have just recently started setting some time aside each week for that. And for me, what that's going to look like is just, again, face-to-face appointments with other agents, mainly who I've had cross sales with or who I'm currently doing cross sales with that are showing interest.
Mm-hmm. Kurt, what about you?
I don't do a lot of like aggressively going out there and doing it. I do run across people because of my being in the county and well known, et cetera, that will ask me questions, and I will take the time aside for it and set aside and answer questions. And I do have people in my downline, but it's not something I do on a continual active basis. I'm pretty focused on my business per se right now.
John?
So I was one of the first agents in my marketplace to move to EXP, and we would live in my marketplace up until I moved to EXP. Remax has had a 54% market share in Nanaimo for the last 10 years. With the next largest market share being about 12%. So it was a big deal when I moved, and so I do some agent attraction. I try to do one event a month, a lunch and learn. We had Glenn Samford up for a larger agent attraction event back in October or November. So I play a hand in it because, it's really a relatively unknown entity here in British Columbia. And so for us, it was really about wanting, I do agent attraction. One, of course, it's great to attract good agents, but also to create a different narrative than the fear mongering going on by some of the broker owners in our marketplace, to kind of set the record straight as to what EXP is and what EXP isn't. I've managed to attract a couple of really dominant leaders in our marketplace, and we've kind of taken the same approach that I mentioned about the business approach I'm taking, wherein I'm trying to work with my ideal type of clients. Our EXP family, our EXP attraction is really focused on trying to target very specific agents that are a really good cultural fit, and trying to build something really cool with people. So we're kind of like not looking for the classic real estate brokerage attraction model, which is, do you have a license? Do you have a heartbeat? You're a perfect fit. We're trying to go a different route and being a little bit more targeted with who we want to attract to our specific roster of EXP. But yeah, I try to do a little bit of agent attraction, but predominantly focused on my business.
Yeah, and that's the same. I find that just being in the business 23 years, I think it's more of people coming to me, and that's how I do mine. I don't really go after it. I just have people come to me, they're just curious, and you just talk about the company. And again, I think agent attraction is just it's like building your real estate career, getting listings. It's all about relationships.
Yeah.
So anything else that anyone else? It's 12:32. Anyone like to add anything else? Wendy, Kurt, John, feel free. Otherwise, we will conclude.
Well, I would just like to thank you guys for having me on the panel. And for those of you, I will be at the shareholder summit. And so if you guys want to come hang out with a Western Canadian, I'd love to meet any of you face to face down at the shareholder summit and or EXP Con. And I appreciate anyone taking the time out of their day to listen to what we have to say.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'd love to meet people at the shareholders meeting. We will be there as well.
Cool.
I will be there as well. I better be, because I'm only an hour and a half away. So I hope everyone out there, if you haven't gotten your shareholders ticket, especially if you're in Florida. I mean, even just come for one day. It's an amazing event. Amazing. So thank you, everybody. We really appreciate it. And thanks for being here. It was an honor speaking to everyone. And we'll see you next time.
Awesome. Thanks, you guys.